Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're interested in basketball history and you want to relive some moments that you remember from the past, or you're just interested in learning the game from the very start, this will be the channel for you. So tune in every day while we discover some of the greatest moments in NBA history. So the first thing I want to talk about is the CCNY point shaving scandal. This was a scandal that happened in 1950 to 51 and was a college basketball point shaving gambling scandal that involved 7 American schools, in all with 4 in the New York metropolitan area, 2 in the Midwest, and 1 in the South. However, most of the key players in the scandal were players of the 1949 to 50 CCNY Beavers men's basketball team. Now, this is really important to the history of the NBA as a whole, because some of the players that were involved in this were top draft picks as the league had just started in the 1949 to 50 season. It all started when the cheating had began with the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the NCAA, and National Invitation Tournament NIT champion city, College of the New York, had won the 1950 NCAA Men's Division I basketball tournament and the 1950 National Invitation Tournament over Bradley University. The scandal involved CCNY and at least 6 other schools, including 3 others in the New York City area: New York University, Long Island University, and Manhattan College, spreading to Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, the University of Kentucky, and the University of Toledo, involving 33 players in all, as well as organized crime. CCNY was eventually banned from playing at Madison Square Garden, although coach Nat Holman was cleared of any wrongdoing. So it's really strange, the discovery of this scandal. It really seems like a movie, and it oddly enough became a movie later on that year in 1951 called The Basketball Fix, solely based on the scandal. Junius Kellogg, a standout 6'8" Manhattan College center, was offered a $1,000 bribe to shave points before a game against DePaul. Although he was working for minimum wage, which at the time was 75 cents an hour, at a frozen custard shop near campus, Kellogg refused to take the money and reported the solicitation to his coach, Ken Norton. Norton sent him to New York City District Attorney Frank Hogan to obtain evidence about the corruption, but Kellogg wore wire when he was again approached in a nearby bar. Really strange event when you think about it. Just a college basketball player at the time, before the NBA was really that big of a deal, just happened to be wearing a wire because he didn't agree with this scandal that had been going on for several years, or for what we know. The scandal first became public when Hogan arrested 7 men on charges of conspiring to fix games on February 18, 1951. Among these taken into custody were All-America forward Ed Warner, center Ed Roman, and guard Al Roth, the 3 stars of CCNY's 5 that won both the NIT and NCAA tournaments. Still the only such double championship in history, and destined to remain such since teams are no longer allowed to enter both tournaments in the same year. The police had set up an undercover operation. The arrests were made in Penn Station when the players returned from Philadelphia after CCNY had defeated Temple University at a score of 95 to 71. In all, 32 players from 7 colleges admitted to taking bribes between 1947 and 1950 to fix 86 games in 17 states. Jack Molinas was not caught in 1951, but after he was suspended for gambling by the National Basketball Association, he was linked back to the 1951 scandal by bets placed on then college team Columbia University. So the reason I wanted to make this video was to talk about the aftermath of this whole scandal and how it really changed the trajectory of the NBA as a whole. The scandal had long-lasting effects for some of the individuals involved, as well as college basketball itself. Long after the scandal was over, coaches warned their players what could happen in their lives if they chose to make some fast money. While Kentucky was forced to cancel 1 season of play in the 1952 to 53 season, it was the only program that wasn't hobbled for the rest of its time. Bradley is the only other affected school to have appeared in the final major media poll. However, none of the programs would suffer more than CCNY and LIU. Following the discovery of several other incidences, CCNY de-emphasized its athletic program and dropped down to what is now Division III. LIU shut down its entire athletic program from 1951 to 57 and did not return to Division I until the late 80s. There have even been some pop culture references towards this in the HBO series The Sopranos during the episode The Rat Pack, where they reference the scandal. And in a novel in 1966 by J. Nugeboren, Big Man is based on what happens to an All-American African-American basketball star 5 years after he was caught in this scandal. So there's actually 10 men that I want to talk about when it comes to this scandal. One of them, it really affected his life as a whole, and the other one was a big star in the NBA, and his career just cut so short at the age of 24. One of the men, Sherman White, was a player for the Long Island University men's basketball team who was indicted and jailed for participating in this scandal. White ultimately served 8 months in jail and was prohibited from ever playing in the NBA, so he went undrafted in 1951. He did, however, play in the EPBL, which is the Eastern Professional Basketball League. He played with 3 different teams, the Hazleton Professionals, which then changed their name to the Hazleton Hawks, the Baltimore Bullets, and the Wilkes-Barre Barons. He was a 5-time All-EPBL first-team player from 54 to 58, the MVP of the league in 1955, the Sporting News Player of the Year in 1951, a consensus second-team All-American in 1950, and he won the Haggerty Award in 1950 as well while in college. Just a career, once again, that cut so short because of this scandal. The next player I want to talk about is Erwin Dambrot. He was a 6'4", 175-pound guard, or forward at the time, who went to CCNY. So really largely affected was this college, which we talked about earlier. He was selected 7th overall in the 1950 NBA draft by the New York Knicks, was an NCAA champion, of course, in 1950, the tournament's most outstanding player in 1950, and an NIT champion in 1950. He never ended up playing a game for the Knicks, but was a high draft selection at the time. Next, we have Floyd Lane. Floyd Lane was a 6'2" guard that also went to CCNY. He didn't make the NBA due to this scandal, but he did have a successful career in the EPBL, just like Sherman White. He started his career in 1954 with the Carbondale Celtics and then the Scranton Miners, same franchise at the time. In 56, he goes to the Hazleton Hawks. In 58, he goes to the Williamsport Billies. Then in 1960, he goes to the Wilkes-Barre Barons, and then back to the Billies in 1961 until he retires in 63. He later on became a coach from 1971 to 74 for Greensboro CC, and then actually coached CCNY from 1974 to 88. Long tenure there. He was an All-EPBL first team, All-EPBL second team in 56, NCAA champion in 1950, and NIT champion in 1950. Then there's Norm Major. Norm Major was a 6'5" forward for the Baltimore Bullets, drafted in 1950 in the 5th round. He attended college at CCNY, of course, from 1947 to 1950, and actually saw some playing time with the Baltimore Bullets in the 50 to 51 season. He played 24 games, shot 28% from the field, 79% from the free throw line, and put up 5 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. Ed Roman, another guy that was strongly affected by this scandal. He was a 6'6" center for CCNY from 1949 to 51, and was, of course, a 1950 NCAA champion, NIT champion the same year, and never played professionally. Similar to Ed Roman, we have Alvin Roth. Alvin Roth was a 6'4" guard for, of course, CCNY from 1949 to 1951. He went undrafted in the NBA draft after declaring for it due to the point-shaving scandal. Ed Roman didn't declare for the draft, from what I can tell, but of course, Alvin Roth was an NCAA champion in 1950, NIT champion in 1950 as well, and never played professionally. Next, we have Ed Warner. Ed Warner was a 6'3" forward from CCNY, same playing years as the previous two in 1949 to 1951, and he was an NCAA champion in 1950, NIT champion in 1950, and was the NIT MVP in 1950, so you'd have to believe if it wasn't for the scandal, he might have declared for the draft, in which he didn't, and he probably would have been picked. Next, we have the coach, Nat Holman. This is the guy that was let off for the point-shaving scandal. He was also an important player for the original Celtics, which were no relation to the Boston Celtics. Also a gifted passer, an excellent floor leader. He was a prototype of later playmakers. He did serve as a coach from 1919 to 1952 for CCNY, but was a player coach until the 1930 season. He later on coached CCNY in 1954 to 56, and again in 58 to 59. His career as a coach, you have to say, was cut short due to this, but he did have a good career as a player, and ultimately Nat Holman's the only player that won't go down as being a big member of this point-shaving scandal, as he is a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Next we have Bill Spivey. Big Bill was a 7-foot center, which you have to believe was massive in 1950. He played at the College of Kentucky from 1949 to 51, and he was the EBL Most Valuable Player in 1959, All-ABL Second Team in 1962, an NCAA Champion in 1951, an NCAA Final Four Most Outstanding Player in 1951, the Consensus First Team All-American in 1951, and a Third Team All-American in 1950 by the Associated Press. Really strange that Bill Spivey was a member of this point-shaving scandal. He really enjoyed the game of basketball. He tried to deny it several times, but was ultimately convicted of this crime. He went on to live in Costa Rica and never got over the fact that he was a member of this and ended up dying at the age of 66. And last is the player that I wanted to talk about the most, and the player that was the reason of this video. It's Alex Groza, the biggest what-if in NBA history in my opinion. Alex Groza was a member of the Kentucky Wildcats from 1945 to 1949, and was the second overall pick in the first ever NBA, or as they called it at the time, BAA draft of 1949. He was a member of the Indianapolis Olympians, where he played center, and in 2 seasons, he led the league in field goal percentage in both seasons. He put up 23 points and 3 assists without rebounds being counted in his first season, and still managed to shoot 73% from the free throw line on 10 attempts, which is a great job getting to the line for a big man, especially at the time. He then the next season put up 22 points and 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 79% from the free throw line, and 47% from the field. These numbers from the field on his career at 47% was absolutely unheard of for the time. You had a lot of guards shooting high 20s to low 30s%, and even the centers that were leading the league at the time were struggling to reach 40% at the time. In the playoffs, he even in 6 games in his rookie season, shot 60% from the field, 83% from the free throw line, and put up 23 points a game to go along with 2 assists. The final season of his career in 1951, he played in the playoffs and he put up 32 points, 14 rebounds, and shot 49% from the field and 76% from the free throw line. You have to believe that if he was to keep playing, he would go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game in the NBA. Not to mention the fact that he also won a gold medal in 1948 in London for Team USA. Groza was really a prototype of the modern center today. He knew how to shoot from all over the court, had great touch and feel for the game, an amazing post game and hook shot that was absolutely unstoppable, and he put up assist numbers for a big man that really showed some modern big style. It's almost guard-like the amount of assists that he was able to get while hitting backdoor cutters and just people splitting down the lane with ease. These were the guys that I wanted to talk about, and there are many more that were affected. You've got to think that if Alex Groza stays on the Indianapolis Olympians, maybe they don't fold as a team. Or maybe he just goes on to a different team and has a greater legacy there. It's crazy to think that this could have really changed the draft order of different teams, and maybe we would have had stars like Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, John Havlicek even, Michael Jordan. Anybody in the future could have been on a different team just based on this guy performing better and not being part of this scandal. I want to thank you if you made it to this part of the video. Lots more content like this coming up, so stay tuned for that every single day. If there's a video idea that you'd like me to make, or if there's a piece of history that you think is forgotten and just not talked about, I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to research, and I'd love to bring it here on YouTube for all of you to view. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed.